Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. For Victoria Newman, that afternoon seemed to be the end of the world. It was a calm, seemingly routine day that would eventually break her already delicate heart. While reviewing quarterly estimates at Newman Towers, she heard a familiar giggle that instantly stopped her in her tracks. It was a sweet musical sound. Claire was the one who laughed. However, it was who Victoria heard with her baby that caused her to halt, not the sound itself. The gentle yet powerful rumbling of a man's voice. Clark Matt. The word itself had come to represent difficulty, buried falsehoods, and ghosts of the past that would not die. Victoria's heart began to race, her gut telling her that something wasn't right. She put down her pen slowly and silently, following the sound as she walked towards the partially open conference room door, her fancy heels making no sound against the marble. Her blood ran cold when she saw what was on the other side. Her daughter Claire was confronting Matt Clark directly, without fear or confrontation. Her expression had a kind, even respectful quality. Before Victoria could comprehend what she was witnessing, Claire moved forward and embraced Matt in a way that defied any explanation Victoria could come up with. It wasn't informal or romantic. It was more fundamental, innate, and the result of a relationship. Victoria let out a loud, silent scream when Claire murmured, "I finally found you, my father." The words resonated through the room like a gunshot, causing her chest to constrict and her thoughts to swirl. "Dad." The word struck her like a blow to the body. Her vision blurred as she gripped the doorframe for support, her flawlessly polished nails cutting into the wood. She wanted to think that her daughter was wrong and that she had misheard, but the way Matt's eyes simultaneously filled with pride and regret proved her wrong. With a shaky voice, Matt whispered, "I never wanted you to find out this way. However, you are entitled to the truth." "I am your biological father," Claire muttered, her breath stopping as her lip trembled. "All these years. You were right there." At that moment, Victoria's world fell apart, the pillars of her existence collapsing. Her heart was racing as she staggered back, gasping for air. The man who had once attempted to ruin her life was being hugged by her daughter, her lovely, lost, and now healing daughter. She believed she had buried the man in her past. Victoria's mind was racing. How? When? How come she hadn't noticed it earlier? Like lightning, memories flashed, revealing minute details that suddenly made terrifying sense. Matt's tendency to shield Claire. His infatuation with her recuperation following the abduction. Even when the Newmans made it obvious he wasn't welcome, he refused to leave town. Victoria had written it off as manipulation or retaliation, but that one statement caused everything to shift into a horrible, dark reality. Claire wasn't her biological child. Matt owned her. The insight struck her as if it were a stab to the heart. Her body shook as she retreated, tears welling up in her eyes. It wasn't until documents were strewn all over the floor that she realized she had dropped her folder. Claire was startled by the sound and spun around. "Mom!" The one word penetrated the mist of incredulity. With 1,000 emotions fighting inside of her, Victoria's breath caught as she met her daughter's gaze. Anger, sadness, love, betrayal. Claire started to approach her, saying, "Mom, I can explain," when Victoria's hand sprang up, trembling uncontrollably. "Don't," she said in a raw whisper. "You dare not." Tension crackled in the air between them. Matt stood up straight, his face etched with shame. He started cautiously, "Victoria, this isn't how I wanted you to find out." She laughed bitterly and brokenly. "Oh my goodness. And Matt, how were you going to tell me? Before or after you once more ruined my family?" Her voice quivered with agony, yet her words were laced with poison. "You once took everything from me, including my dignity, peace, and trust. And now you've abducted my daughter." Tears welled up in Claire's eyes. She moved forward and begged, "You haven't lost me, Mom. My mother will always be you." "Nothing alters that, however." Victoria shook her head incredulously. "Nothing modifies that." Her tone cracked as she repeated, "Everything alters that, Claire. You are descended from the man who tormented me and almost destroyed my life. And you didn't tell me about this." Claire's mouth opened in perplexity. She said, "I only found out last week." Matt was honest with me about his relationship with you in the past, and how he was unaware of it. He claimed he was unaware of my existence. With tears burning in her eyes, Victoria turned to face Matt. You were unaware, she growled. Matt, you always know. You always have a strategy, a trick, or a manipulation. Was this your ultimate goal, please? Turn my daughter against me once more? Matt took a cautious step forward and spoke in a firm but low voice. I'm not the man I was, Victoria. It wasn't until the DNA results were returned that I realized Claire was mine. I couldn't lie to her when she came to me looking for explanations. Time stopped for a second. The weight of all the years that had gone unsaid, all the suffering and secrets that were simmering beneath the surface, flooded the room. With a gradual shake of her head, Victoria moved away from them both. No, she muttered, almost to herself. This is not possible. This is some sort of cruel joke, but the truth was evident in their eyes. The similarity she had previously denied seeing, the way Claire's eyes reflected Matt's when she was upset, and the subtle gestures she had dismissed as coincidental. It was all there, making fun of her. Her heels clicked unevenly on the floor as she turned and staggered into the hallway, holding her hand to her chest in an attempt to control her breathing. Images of Claire in her arms as a baby, Claire laughing as a young child, and Claire whispering, I love you, Mom, following her nightmares filled her head. The question of whether she had been living a lie now contaminated every moment. Claire's voice cut through the quiet behind her. Please don't leave, Mum. However, Victoria was unable to go back. With tears clouding her eyes and the walls closing in, she ran down the hallway. Victoria fell into her chair in the seclusion of her office, trembling violently. She held a framed picture of herself and Claire that had been taken only a few months prior, before everything had collapsed. How is this possible? She traced Claire's happy face with shaky fingertips as she whispered. On the desk, her phone buzzed with a message from Nick. I wanted to see how you were doing. She wanted to respond, to get in touch with someone, but she couldn't find the right words. Haven't heard from you since the board meeting. How could she make sense of the inexplicable? Claire, meanwhile, sat in the conference room with tears running down her cheeks in astonished silence. She despises me, she murmured in a weak whisper. With a guilty expression on his face, Matt knelt next to her. Claire, she doesn't despise you. She's stunned. Claire shook her head, saying, This is a lot to process. No, you're not understanding. She is my mother. I've only ever known one mother. And now I've ruined her. Matt tightened his jaw and swallowed hard. Nothing was destroyed by you. The reality did. He put a protecting, fatherly hand on her shoulder and said, I made mistakes, unforgivable ones, but I won't let you pay for them. You deserve to know who you are. Even though I know it hurts. Back in her office, Victoria relived every detail of her past relationship with Matt Clark, including his deceit, obsession, and sinister tactics. She believed she had permanently buried him years ago. Now, in the cruelest manner conceivable, fate had brought his shadow back into her life. What's the cruelest part? He was the innocent young woman she had battled so valiantly to save, the daughter she had almost lost her life defending. Victoria didn't even need to look up to recognize Claire when the door softly opened behind her. The tentative, quiet knock was sufficient. Claire trembled as she muttered, Mom! Victoria's jaw tightened as she gazed out the window, tears sparkling in her eyes. Please talk to me. Claire moved in closer, saying, There's nothing left to say. Indeed there is. My mama is you. I was reared by you. When no one else did, you showed me love. Just because Matt. Don't mention his name, Victoria yelled and whirled. Claire flinched at the intensity of her suffering. What that man did to me is beyond your comprehension. What it cost me to survive him is beyond your comprehension. A thick, oppressive silence descended. I know he hurt you, Claire said, her voice breaking. He filled me in on everything. However, he also expressed regret. Through her tears, Victoria chuckled coldly. He's changed. Modified? Men like Matt Clark are unchanging. They ruin. They act in this manner. Her voice broke as the truth came out. And now he's found a new way to destroy me. Through you. Claire, you were the only pure thing in my life. The one thing I believed remained unaffected by the suffering and falsehoods. And now even that has been taken from me. Claire's voice wavered as she moved forward, her own tears falling freely. Mom, you didn't lose me. I remain who I am. Desperate to close the gap between them, she leaned out and said, I still love you. Following a protracted, agonizing silence, Victoria glanced at her daughter's shaking hand before turning to face her. The face she had cherished ever since she'd held her for the first time. I want to believe that, Victoria murmured slowly, tears running down her cheeks. Yes, I do. However, I'm not sure what's genuine anymore. The moment seemed to go on forever. Then Claire turned and walked away, her sobbing resonating down the corridor as she muttered, I'm sorry, in a voice hardly audible above a whisper. The sound of Victoria's grief filled the empty room as she fell to her knees and held the picture frame to her chest. Later that evening, Victoria was alone herself in her penthouse, sitting by the window with an unopened glass of wine. Her suffering was mocked by the glowing city lights outside. She appeared to be a stranger in the glass, broken, hollow, and lost. She recalled how Claire had embraced Matt and how their bond had been effortless. She was troubled by it. Her daughter's lineage had been taken by a horrible turn of events and connected to the guy she detested the most. Beneath all the suffering, though she was unable to ignore one indisputable fact, her love for Claire could not be erased by a DNA test, a secret, or a betrayal. It was an intense, maternal, unwavering love. Thus, Victoria vowed to herself as morning broke over Genoa City. She refused to allow Matt Clark to prevail. Her daughter's heart would never be taken by him, but he might take her tranquilly, her trust, and even her blood ties. She would battle as a mother determined to take back what was rightfully hers, not as the CEO of Newman Enterprises, or as a victim of Matt's scams. Because Claire was hers regardless of what biology dictated. And no man could ever alter that, no past, no secret. However, a disturbing notion that perhaps, just possibly, fate had other intentions began to creep into her thoughts as she stared out at the skyline. Every truth in Genoa City had a cost, and Victoria Newman was about to discover that even the purest love might be put to the test via blood. Victoria didn't get much sleep that night. She saw it every time she closed her eyes. Claire's arms encircling Matt, that loving, painful embrace that stayed with her forever. No matter how hard she gripped the wine glass or how many times she muttered, It's not true, it can't be true, she was unable to shake the vision. Claire's words, I finally found you, my father, tore through her chest like glass fragments, yet no amount of denial could drown them out. The one man she vowed she would never forgive was related by blood to her daughter, the girl she had battled for, wept for, and bled for. Beneath her penthouse window, the city came to life as dawn broke. However, everything continued to feel uncannily frozen to Victoria. White noise was created by the clock's clinking and the heater's soft hum. Red-eyed and tired, she gazed at her mirror, wondering how she'd allowed this to occur. How could she have overlooked the warning signs? How could fate have been so cruel as to turn her life into another nightmare? Her heart ached from something deeper than betrayal, terror. She fears losing Claire entirely. Once more her phone buzzed. This time it was a text from Nick. We must speak, Vic. I heard strange things about Claire and Matt. Victoria's stomach knotted. Call me. Thus it has already begun to spread. She was aware that the Newman name will soon be dragged through the mud once more as the walls began to close in. When Victor learnt that his granddaughter was biologically related to Matt Clark, the guy who had almost destroyed his family decades before, she couldn't even begin to comprehend what he would say. She was startled by the sound of the lift doors. The doors opened before she could recover herself, and Claire was there. Her blonde hair was matted, her eyes were swollen from crying, and regret permeated every part of her body. Mom, she muttered. Please, don't ignore me. With her arms crossed over her chest, Victoria stood. Her voice quivered with suppressed emotion, but her face remained composed. Claire, you shouldn't be here. Claire moved closer and begged. I had to come. I had trouble falling asleep. I keep thinking about what transpired. I never intended to cause you harm. Victoria looked away, staring at the skyline of the city. Claire, you didn't just hurt me, she said. I've been trying to heal a wound for years, but you tore it open. I was unaware. Claire's voice broke. Until I performed those foolish DNA tests, I had no idea who he was. Victoria jerked her head in her direction. You what? Claire winced. She trembled as she said, I did a DNA ancestry test. I wanted to know my origins after everything that transpired with the kidnapping. I didn't believe it would be significant. However, there was a match, Matt Clark, when I received the findings. Victoria tightened her jaw. And you went to him rather than to me. That's not how I had planned it. Claire sobbed. All I needed to hear was from him. I had to find out if it was genuine. And I was at a loss for words when he verified it. I assumed I would have time. With a tone that wavered between sadness and rage, Victoria shook her head. Time? There's never enough time for something like this, Claire. You don't expect things to remain the same after dropping a bomb like that. Claire's cheeks were wet with tears. She said, I didn't want to lose you. You are my mother. I was raised and saved by you. I reasoned that you would view me differently if I told you. With a broken voice, Victoria said, I am looking at you differently. Because I see him every time I see you. The man who lied to me, controlled me, and almost destroyed my life has now taken something from me once more. The silence was broken by Claire's weeping. Mom, he didn't take me away from you. I visited him. I was looking for answers. It was me that requested a test. I reasoned that it would explain why I've always felt odd, as if something was lacking. For a brief moment, Victoria's eyes softened, but her suffering persisted. Did you discover what you were searching for? Claire dabbed at her tears. I discovered my identity. However, I also discovered that my love for you is unaffected by who I am. For the first time since that terrible moment in the conference room, Victoria actually looked at her daughter and saw the scared, broken little girl she had worked so hard to rescue from the shadows rather than Matt's shadow. She couldn't force herself to reach out, even though her heart hurt. She said, Love doesn't erase the truth. And it doesn't lessen the pain. Matt was the one who made the lifting once more. Even though he had a guilty expression on his face, he went out with his typical quiet assurance. Victoria, he uttered cautiously, I'm not here to fight. I came to give an explanation. In an instant, Victoria's voice sharpened. Matt, you've explained enough. Every single thing you have ever said has been a lie. Matt stepped forward, maintaining a steady gaze. Not now. Victoria, I had no idea. You are free to despise me for anything else but not for this. She gave him a fierce look. You want me to think that you were unaware that you had a daughter with me? He let out a sigh. We both understand how that period of time was. You didn't notify anyone when you departed Genoa City. My calls were not returned by you. You didn't want anything to do with me when I returned. I assumed you had moved on. I did move on, Victoria said, her voice breaking as she spat. Without you I created a life. However, as soon as you saw an opportunity to harm me once more, you crept back into my life. Matt spoke a little louder. I didn't return to exact retribution. I returned because I believed that perhaps I could reconcile with what had transpired. Then Claire entered my life, and at first I had no idea why I was attracted to her. Maybe it was guilt, I thought. However, everything made sense after the DNA results were received. Torn between incredulity and rage, Victoria's heart thumped in her chest. Matt, you destroyed me. I will never be able to recover the parts of me that you stole. And now you've tarnished my kid, the last pure thing I have left. Matt muttered. I didn't taint her. I told her the truth. You've always stated that being honest is important. This is the actual unpleasant and awful truth. Victoria growled, her voice trembling. You don't get to twist this into something noble. You broke my heart, and now you're shattering hers. Matt's expression softened. Victoria, I'm not your enemy. No more. I won't allow Claire to grow up detesting herself for something that wasn't her fault, even if I am aware that what I did to you cannot be undone. The ensuing hush was oppressive. With tears in her eyes, Claire stood terrified between them. Please, she muttered. Give up fighting. I'm at my breaking point. With a shaky voice, Victoria turned to face her. It shouldn't be required of you. You shouldn't have to deal with all of this. But due of him it is now. Matt's jaw tightened as he momentarily closed his eyes. At last he responded. I'll go. If that's your desire. However, don't penalize Claire for discovering her identity. Victoria remained silent. With every muscle in her body stiff and every heartbeat serving as a reminder of everything he had stolen from her, she simply stared at him. At last she muttered, "Leave." With a hesitant nod, Matt glanced in Claire's direction. Before leaving, he whispered, "You know where to find me if you need me." There was an overwhelming hush when he left. Claire sent a helpless glance at her mother. "Now what should we do?" Turning away, Victoria encircled herself with her arms. "I'm not sure," she muttered. "At the moment, I have no idea who I am." Victoria cut herself isolated from everyone for the next few days. She disregarded her father's messages, Nikki's texts, and Nick's calls. Although her penthouse's walls were familiar, they still seemed like a cage. Her thoughts kept returning to that scene in the conference room, where Claire was embracing Matt, each time she attempted to work. She was plagued by the memory like a ghost. She finally cracked one night as the rain beat down on the windows. Silently sobbing into her knees, she sat on the floor with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. It wasn't until a quiet voice said, "Mom?" that she heard the door open. Once more it was Claire. She would use the extra key to let herself in. She had concern in her eyes. "You haven't responded to anyone," she murmured. "Uncle Nick is going crazy. Grandpa is inquiring. You can't simply vanish."